Well, welcome to the South Tahoe Public Utility District's candidate forum for this election. We have 3 seats, and we have 6 candidates running for the 3 seats. And remember that you get to vote for 3 of these candidates when you go to mark out your ballot. So what we're going to do, the forum will be, we're going to ask the candidates for an opening statement of about 2.5 minutes. And we actually have a timer here. We're going to keep the thing rolling. And then we'll open it up for questions, and we'll go down the road. And each in the audience gets to stand up and ask a good question. And we'll go down the row as the questions get asked. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to answer every question, so they all get to answer. And we'll do that for about an hour, about 7:15, 7:20 or so. Then we'll move to closing statements, and each candidate will be given 2.5 minutes to give a closing statement. And we'll probably go in the opposite direction for the closing statements as we're going to do for the opening statements. So if you're too shy to ask a verbal question, you can write it down and give it to me, but then I get a chance to edit it and make sure that it's good and clean, and it has to do with the district and not something else. You have that option. So with that, there are no questions. If you have burning questions, we'll just go get started, and we'll start with Jim. We'll move this way with the opening statements. 2.5 minutes. What's the time?
Thank you all for showing up tonight. We're getting close to the election. We've got like 13, 12 days left. A lot of you have asked, a lot of other people around town, why I'm running again. I have the enthusiasm and the time to do it. I also feel that as a productive member, responsible member of this community, that I'm obligated to use my skills, my education, my training to help with the issues that are before the board. As a lot of you know, I'm really concerned about the budgeting that we. Can you hear me okay, or are you supposed to be talking to them? We've had a bunch of years here recently where we have not raised our rates enough to cover some of the problems that we have out in the field. Mostly it's underground stuff, water lines, sewer lines. Water lines in some areas are undersized. We got 10% of our community that doesn't have adequate fire protection. The sewer, as many of you remember that problem we had out in the Keys. We have over 300 miles, lineal miles of asbestos cement. And here's a piece that came out of the Tahoe Keys failure. It was about a 4-foot section that collapsed. We had to go back in and replace 80 feet. It probably could have been done for under $6,000 or $8,000 if we'd have fixed it before it failed, but it cost us $400,000. And we had no contingency. And so when things like that happen, something has to be kicked down the road. So we kicked the can down the road on quite a few projects. Things have been put off for many years, and we're looking. And I'm worried about what happened back in the 70s, late 70s and early 80s, when the district went through a lot of problems. They had not repaired and replaced and maintained the plant the way they should, and we ran into serious problems with moratoriums or failures of the system, or fines, and no building permits, no sewer permits were issued for a period there, which really hurt this community. I don't want to get back into that again. It's my time's up, so I'll other things later.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming, especially all you baseball fans. But you can look up the score on your cell phone, I guess. My name is Luke Rain. I'm running for the South Tahoe PUD Board of Directors for numerous reasons. I've had experience here. I was on the board from 1989 to 1993. When I was on the board, we did a cost benefit for all the projects that were significant impacts on our balance sheet. And I'd like to bring that back. I agree with Jim, the infrastructure needs need to be addressed. We can address those in numerous ways. The number one way to address it in the past is raising rates. And that can be done, but if we raise rates, we got to dedicate that raise in the rates to specific projects. And I'm all in favor of that. The other way to generate income is to take advantage of our assets. And a current example of that is leasing some property in the back here to Verizon or something to generate some revenue. Other ways to generate revenue, I'm not sure how many acres we have and how many square feet that transfers into, but those are all sellable assets, especially in this environment in Lake Tahoe where you have hydrological zones that the amount per square foot for coverage is significant. We have those assets sitting right back here. We don't have to give up title. We don't have to give up fee title. We just have to give coverage up. With the growth that the district is experiencing and will experience in the future, it appears that we have plenty of land existing coverage-wise to take care of us for the next 50 years. But, so we have all these assets laying around town that we're not taking advantage of. Well, prior to coming on the board, and one of the things I'm most proud of actually is hiring Richard Solberg as the assistant general manager back in 1990, and as he remembers over breakfast, he had a grand slam at Denny's. And Richard, I think, has made this district the best run public agency in the basin, and it still is. But we need to generate revenue. Now, you do it through rates or you do it through assets, one of the two. And the rate, if you do it through rates, you have to dedicate that amount of rate increase to specific projects, specific capital improvement projects. I've lived in South Tahoe for 46 years. I've been in business here for over 35 years. I'm a homeowner, business owner. I've been active in my community. I've been in over 200 meetings, maybe close to 1,000. I have 2 kids. I had to mention them. Thank you. My time's up.
Good evening. Thanks for having this forum. My name is Dwayne Wallace, and I've been on the board twice. And I see this board as a continuum of chairs. During Lou Peridi's time as chair, we had him as chair quite a while, we were dealing with redevelopment. And we had a pretty good way of dealing with that. Then when Chris Stroh was on board, we had him as chair for quite a while, myself a couple of times, but we dealt with MTBE, and we beat 32 oil companies in court. Took us years. Then as Eric was chair, we started dealing with the meters, water meters, being required $25 million worth of water meters and how we install them. Randy Vogelsang is now our current chair, and he's done a great job of continuing what Eric started. So there's a lot of good people that have carried on. You always want new blood, if you can do it, but you also want a continuum of people who understand what went on in the past and how things ought to go in the future. And I'm one of those people. They get tired of hearing me say, well, we went down that road before, let's try this. When I agree with Jim, we need to watch our assets, excuse my language, and we've done that correctly. We have not raised the rates more than we thought was possible for us to do. $10 million a year is about what we're doing in construction improvement projects. It's about what our people can handle. But in the meantime, as far as assets are concerned, we did rent to Verizon. We do generate 381,000 kilowatts a year. We do grow alfalfa at a profit on our land, and we do lease our land to cattle grazing. And that's not all we'll be doing in the future, because I agree with Lou. I also agree with the idea of making sure that it's dedicated to a project, and I believe in sunsetting rates. So I'll talk more about it later. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Exland. I'm very pleased to be here and see everyone's faces. And so, yeah, let's have a really positive experience. I want to tell you a little bit to start with about myself. I am an AICP senior planner with Midkiff and Associates. In the last 10 years at Midkiff and Associates, I've been the lead planner on over $1 billion worth of investment. And all of those projects brought three things: a return on investment, significant return on investment, environmental improvement, and fire protection. We have done projects that have reduced energy usage anywhere from 25 to 80%, reduced vehicle miles traveled, restored areas of shoreline in Tahoe, vast watersheds in Incline Village, and we did that all with private capital means. Other people might know me from my volunteer experience. I'm very engaged in many issues, renewable energy and climate change being two of those. So I worked with a team of people and collaborated to have the City of South Lake Tahoe and Lake Tahoe Unified School District both commit to 100% renewable electricity. The way we were able to do that was really twofold. We were able to talk about the economic and the environmental benefits. And what the amazing thing through that experience is we were able to bring forward the community. Both chambers of commerce came in support. Both bodies voted unanimously to make that improvement. And so what I want to look to do is to bring both of those efforts here to SDPUD, because we have challenges. Many of those have already been highlighted. But I want to tell you specifically why I'm running. So there's the fire infrastructure. Recently, I've had an opportunity through the private sector, to develop a fire system between Upaway and Cave Rock, where formerly none existed. We were able to do that without raising monthly rates and with no help from either the GID or the county. We need to bring that effort to SDPUD. Rate raising is very important. Many of you might have heard, but I've been knocking on doors throughout this entire community, and I can tell you one thing definitively: people don't have the money to pay for it. It's a very serious thing. So we need to start looking at other options so SDPUD does not become the Sheriff of Nottingham of South Shore. And then finally, economic responsibility. Like I said, all the projects I work on have to follow market realities and show improvement. And I want to bring that ethic to SDPUD, and so I'm excited to talk about all those things with you this evening. Thank you.
I've been on the board for 9 years. I got elected, well, the 1 year we actually changed the election year to save some money, so it's 5 years and 4 years. And I've been saying the same thing for 9 years. And most of you that work here, the staff knows me. I pretty much say what I do and do what I say. And my whole platform, I guess you could call it, is to make sure that I listen to everything, all the information that I have to make a good decision. And that's with the ratepayers' best interest in mind. The sky's not falling, okay? There's one phrase I can use that the district has developed that is genius, and that is asset optimization. There are parts of our system that may look like they were brand new, and there are parts of our system that may need replacement. But with the asset optimization, we have the ability to decide where those dollars got to go to fix our system and make it run well. It's a genius idea. I firmly support it, and I don't think we just need to throw dollars at our system by raising rates and replacing things that don't need to be replaced. And the people at the district would agree with me on that. So while it's irresponsible to say that we can lower rates, because I don't see that ever happening, especially through green energy initiatives that so far do not pencil out and have been analyzed through the wazoo, we can, as has been said, generate revenue from Diamond Valley. We can look at ways to save money through efficiencies of technology that we're finding change every day. And the limit to this is the ratepayers. I mean, ultimately, they've said it. There's a limit to what our ratepayers can afford to pay. So while it would be really nice to not kick the can down the road, we're just going to have to pay for what we can fix at the time and do it in a responsible way that allows us to not bury the people that pay the fees, including us. I mean, we're all ratepayers, and we've raised rates significantly in the last 5 years to pay for water meters that were mandated by the state, as everyone knows, and it was painful. But it had to be done, and it's almost completed. With a couple more years worth of work, we'll be able to say that's behind us. And going forward, I think the key is experience.
Good evening, Eric Schaefer, and thank you for hosting this. I think you're entitled to the following from people running for the board of SGPD. They have to exhibit leadership that's fact-based decision-making without hidden agendas. You have to understand complex financial information in business operations. As an audit partner in the 70s and 80s of a national firm, I audited companies with up to $1 billion in revenue. You have to always consider environmental issues with each decision, and SDPUD is a champion in that category. You have to have extensive knowledge and understanding of employee compensation and benefits, and that mainly relates to healthcare and retirement. You have to have a policy of setting fair ratepayer charges that maintain valuable water and sewer systems. And you need a commitment to finding revenue sources that complement service charges. Understand that the conservation program has been so successful that revenues go down as less water is used. And so that creates an even more far-reaching dynamic in terms of balancing the budget. You have to encourage cost-effective innovation that improves operations. Doing it just for the sake of saying you do it does not work. It has to pay off. You have to create a work environment that promotes opportunities for employee productivity and advancement. Those were my guiding principles when I was on the board from 2001 to 2014, including 6 years as president. I've also served on the school board for 12 years and have provided financial leadership to many community organizations. As a certified public accountant for 48 years, I continue to operate a tax planning and preparation practice. I understand the district and the issues. I offer dedicated community service to listening to community concerns. I appreciate and respect your vote.
Great, thank you. So now it's your turn to ask questions. And, I'll walk over to the mic. Yep.
Sorry to use you with comments.
Well,
My biggest effort facing local government is how we are going to deal with the demands for housing in our community. There's lots of comments about low and middle income housing, workforce housing. What do you think SDPUD could do to help contribute to a solution to that problem that faces us today?
since Jim went first on the opening statement, why don't we start with Lou? So we'll go that way if they get some minutes to answer that question.
Well, it's interesting you asked that today. I just got done doing that cursory read of the EIR EIS for the Loop Road. And that's a big issue that's going to really impact affordable housing. We're going to take out over a little less than 200 livable units down there. So that's going to impact it even more, let alone the cost of the district's infrastructure that we'll have to relocate, so it's into the millions of dollars. But that EIR EIS that's just come out today, probably a lot of people haven't had a chance to read it. But if you do get a chance and you don't have anything to do, that's something to read. What the district can do is some way to facilitate a rate decrease or a connection fee decrease for those projects that are deed restricted now and so far in the future. 10 years, we say it's 10 years won't work, we need it at 5. Those numbers can be worked out, but we need to be able to facilitate some kind of rate reduction on connection fees, not on usage fees, but on connection fees. That's an impediment to affordable housing. Thank you.
I agree with Lou on the Loop Road. We just recently did a survey of over 4,000 voters, and 65.3% of our community not only want to vote on the Loop Road, but are dead set against it. And one of the reasons is they don't believe that that amount of homes can be replaced. So what can the district do? Well, let me start with what we've already done. We cut our connection fee 25%, and then we cut it 25% more. So it costs half as much to connect to the district. The reason why we did that is we wanted to start the dominoes rolling, because the problem on affordable housing is the base cost is too high for a developer or contractor to be able to make money. So if we can get every agency in the basin to cut their fees, the city, the county, get land from the CTC, get lower rate from us, and in addition, we made it so that if someone wants to transfer sewer units into an affordable housing project, they don't have to pay a dime. Well, maybe $50 for administration. So what can we do more? Just a little bit more of what Lou is talking about. And so that's it.
No, it's a really good question. Affordable housing issues are plaguing the nation, and in particular California. So we need to look at what the district can do and then what we can do in collaboration with all other entities. So when working on a planning project, I deal with the regulatory agencies, specifically dealing with land use every single day. So what I would look to do is take some of the leadership that SDPUD has shown in reducing rates, although an important caveat is we shouldn't be reducing rates for those generating commercial income here locally, and we should only be reducing those rates for affordable housing. But in addition to that, what we need to look to do is we need to start collaborating. So SDPUD, the City of South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County, all stakeholders need to come into play, because there's very little SDPUD besides low-end connection fees and potentially usage can do by themselves. But what they can do is they can operate as a facilitator of bringing these stakeholders together, coming to a place and showing how the fiscal changes that these different regulatory agencies can make can benefit affordable housing. Thank you.
So the problem going toward the end is that all the answers have been answered, but technically we're already doing it. We led the way with the connection fees and the transfer of sewer units to affordable housing. There's a lot of variables, and Dwayne's answer, Dick's answer, Lou's answer, they were all really good. But we're doing it. We're leading the way for the other agencies to try and make accommodation for that. But that's only one part of it, because the whole point of affordable housing or workforce housing or whatever you want to define it as comes down to the cost of building and making it pencil out for someone to spend the time and money to build it. So there's land costs. Again, that's probably speaks closer to Nick's area of expertise, but you have to be able to acquire the land, get the permits, build it, and make it actually either just break even or make money in order for someone to want to do it. So I think to answer the question, we're already kind of on that road right now.
I think maybe you need to reverse the process and get developers to tell you how much it would take for them to come in and do low-cost housing instead of throwing out carrots that you may or may not know work. I think collaboration has been a one-way street in terms of my experience on the board. This district takes the lead in doing a lot of things that were not worked with by the city or the county or TRPA or other regulatory agencies. We need to get those agencies to step up to the table and not just to talk rhetoric. TRPA has been in existence for a long time, and yet we still have fire problems in the community. We still have land use problems in the community. Zoning hasn't been adhered to as relates to the VHR issue in the city. So there's a lot of things that can be done, but a lot of it is on the shoulders of other agencies.
The last comment by Eric was that the onus is on a lot of other entities. We have a purpose of water and sewer. We are not a public relief agency or whatever. I'm in for some sort of low-income housing, and I've had some experience in design and structural and things like that. But it's expensive to build up here. The board, against my recommendation, 4-1 vote, which I've been 4-1 on many times, decided to reduce the fees. We had started 10 years ago with an idea. We had a consulting firm come in with a figure, and so we were going to raise it every year. It was $3,700 10 years ago. Well, it didn't get raised, and then in the last year they cut everything in half. We were actually charging less. We're charging $2,600 a sewer unit, which is less than what we were charging about 10 years ago. So that works out to about $2 million in lost revenue, or about $115 for every homeowner in the basin that's subsidized.
Okay, I think everybody's answered that first question. Next question.
As a board member, how will you address the challenge of climate change?
Well, we already are. I've been to Washington several times as I'm part of that crew with Jim and some of our staff to get money for fire suppression. The thing that we can do most is supply water to put out fires and to support the fire departments and our wildfire fighters with their ability to put out the fires. The trees are too close together, they're dead, they burn, and the Angora fire was a good example. We went to Washington and begged them to come out, and they helped us try to get the wicking effect of the stream cleaning of trees cleaned out. And so we're really right on it. We have a complete around the lake partnership with fire departments and water agencies that Shannon and others have put together for just that purpose. And the reason fires it is because it would destroy our environment here, and the fires are ruining the air, which causes the climate change to be worse. Forgot to say that.
So I would look to begin a transition to powering both STPUD through via renewable energy. I would do that in several different facets, but I would tell you a few things. Is that number one, the economic realities are possible. You need to have the expertise, the experience, and the understanding of the complex regulatory, political, and economic process to be able to bring that to fruition. If there's any additional questions about this, I can tell you some of the problems with the previous analysis and why it wasn't applicable to today. But more broadly, what we need to do is begin the transition to renewable energy and more sustainability efforts. What I've been telling people as I knock on their doors is if you give me a quarter, I will find you a nickel of sustainability that will be both good for the environment and for the ratepayer. And so we need to start to look to transition not only the SPPUD, but all entities to that direction. I have the experience, both in the private sector and in my volunteer experience, to help bring that forward. Thank you.
So the exact question you asked was, how are we going to
Address
do our...
the challenge of climate change.
Okay, so climate change to me is a global effort, and we're a very small dot on that giant planet. But the one thing we have done is, as we improve the infrastructure and an opportunity arises to make a change to the system and still pencil out for the ratepayers, we've chosen to do that. For instance, at Diamond Valley, our pump station is now generating hydroelectric energy that powers the entire facility from that pump. So I think in a realistic sense, as we evolve and technology gets better and there's ways to do that while still making it cost effective, then that's what we've chosen to do. And there may be some ideas that Nick has or someone else has, and we're always open to them. We listen to them all the time, and until then, or until such time that they make sense financially, we just have to go where we can. Sorry.
I have to agree with Chris that it's difficult to envision how our service area of up to 35,000 people can have a measurable change on climate change. However, we continue to comply with every regulation, like replacing old diesel engines with ones that are cleaner and are less polluting to the environment. All of our vehicles, like Chris mentioned, starting to generate electricity, not only to go and power the facility at Diamond Valley, but also to put it onto the grid in order to save some money for the district. So I think we continue to be good stewards of our assets. We continue to make changes to those assets in a logical way, always remembering the effect that we're going to have on the environment and doing our best to make it the best.
It's happening. Global warming is really happening. I've been involved in water projects for 50 years since I graduated from college. In fact, for a period, I worked in for the Bureau of Reclamation and on cloud seeding projects in Colorado. So I've been aware of the meteorology, the environment, and what's happening with our climate here. But we don't have to worry. We'll be one of the last areas in the state to be affected by loss of water. We only extract about 10% of what actually percolates into the soil here. So we're in pretty good shape with water, and the ski areas are the ones that really need to worry.
My previous stint on the board actually is when we initiated getting rid of the furnace we had out here to burn all the sludge, and now that's being used to spread across the ground. But that's a long time ago. What do we do today? Well, today I think we set an example. I bought a Prius in 2001. I thought I set an example then. We could set examples like that. Those aren't going to be monumental changes, but those will affect people that look at us for some kind of leadership or some kind of pathway to go to make some kind of difference. Even though the difference might not be significant enough globally, it'll be significant enough to make people think about what they're doing, think about how much they're driving, think about how much they're burning gas and or wood. And I think if we make people aware of that, that's a mission that we can carry out without an expenditure, without raising rates or looking for other sources of revenue to do that. My time is up, and I forgot to mention my wife on my last statement, so thank you.
The next question. Well, while everybody's pondering and formulating the next question, I'll ask one. How would you describe the role of a board member? I think, Nick, you're up first.
No, definitely. I would say the important, okay, let me step back for a second. So working as a planning consultant, I can tell you what I do a lot of. I deal with a lot of boards, commissions, councils, you name it, daily, both elected ones and ones via private companies. And I can tell you the most successful boards they set the direction, they set the attitude, they set the vision, and then the planning process to get there. You know, an entity like this, you have to start looking at, what projects the staff are doing, what's going forward, how can the board begin to set the direction for where the district is going. The board can't just sit back on their heels and say, staff's going to take care of everything. The entities in which that takes place aren't as effective as the ones in which there's a clear vision, directive, and action being taken by the board.
I think the role of a director or a board member is as the voice of the ratepayers. We're elected by the ratepayers, and it's our job to make sure that they're represented. It's also our job to make sure that the financial oversight at the district is taken care of. And what I've learned in 9 years is that the people that work here know what they're doing. They're extremely professional, they're passionate about their jobs, and they do a good job. And I'm not just saying that because you're all sitting there. I've said that pretty much in every forum I've been to. So our job is not to manage the manager. Our job is to make sure that the decisions that are made represent the ratepayers. And that's what I've been doing for 9 years, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Primary responsibility of a board member is to choose the general manager to guide the way. Other than that, by participating in board meetings and committee meetings, you are able to offer your advice and wisdom and guidance on the direction that the district is taking. I think a board member has a responsibility to look outside the basin and see what's happening at a state and national level and be aware of trends that are taking place and opportunities for funding from federal agencies and likewise city agencies so that we can mitigate some of the costs, increasing costs we're incurring. So the best thing a board member can do is stay out of the way of professional and well-intentioned and highly capable staff members, and that is exactly what we've got at SDPD.
The goals and the policies are the things that the board is responsible for. We have one employee, it's the general manager, and our legal assistants. We hire them. The general manager is responsible for everything else, the hiring and firing and implementing of the policies of the board. And he doesn't do his job, and we get a new one. But we've been extremely lucky over the last three general managers. Jim Cofer was here for 13 years, Bob Bear was here for 13 years, and Richard has been here for 15. And that really provides for a lot of stability at the top as well as in the management, and that trickles down to the staff. And that's important. We just need to set those policies and, as Eric said, get out of the way.
I'm sorry to disagree with anything I've heard. That's what we do. We set the policy and hopefully the general manager carries it out. One thing I would add, though, is I think you need a board member that's involved in the community, that has an ear for other issues and other policies that we might not be aware of. And that means going to meetings at TRPA, City of South Lake Tahoe, Lahontan, DCSID, Douglas County Sewer Improvement District, that just went through a lot of changes. That means being aware of what they're doing, what our competitors are doing. We don't have any direct competition, but we have competition in how we perform. And we've done excellent at that. I would put our district up against any in the basin for being the best run and the best managed. So let's hope we continue that. But I think board members has to stay attuned to all the other agencies in the basin because we interact with them every day.
I have to stand up because when I wave my arms, I knock things over, and I don't think I can talk without waving my arms. Everybody's kind of said it, but I think the nutshell way of saying it is the board is the what, and the staff is the how. So we take what we know the community values, what we value as a group, we find the best manager we can, we give them strong direction as to the what, and then we get out of their way. That doesn't mean that we don't watch, but I've seen train wrecks happen over and over again by board members who thought they were the manager and they were smarter than everybody in the room, and they caused so much trouble for the managers. So as a group, it takes three of us to watch and make sure that the manager is doing their job. And of course, our other oversight is the budget. Thank you.
Okay, you said any questions. Who's next?
It's okay, I mean, what else can you say?
Thanks, good evening. I've heard a lot about affordable rate increases, so given what you know about district finances and our infrastructure needs, what do you consider to be reasonable and affordable rate increases?
Well, I think, we've already we've been down this road a lot, and, when Eric was on the board, one of the things we used to talk about a lot was the fact that moderate increases over time are better than large one-time shot in the arm. And so I've kind of taken that philosophy because I believe in that, moderate being, 4%. We had to go a little higher last time because we had a $20 or $25 million burden with the water meters. So we did that over 5 years, and in the process saved the district a bunch of money not having to do the 218 process every single year. So going forward, that question depends on the variables that we can't answer the question yet. As our asset optimization, more information comes to light, we'll be able to make better decisions on future rate increases. But, moderate to me is single digit.
I had the policy that regular affordable increases were the way to go instead of large ones on an as-needed basis when that was determined. And I lived with that for 14 years, and I still do. A study is going on to suggest to us what kind of rate increases are needed in order to accomplish what we need to with replacement of assets. And I would need to see that information before I could make a determination of what is reasonable at this point. We came up with what was reasonable last time in 2013 or 14 when we did the 5-year 218. That is the way to go. It allows staff to plan, and it allows the board to focus on other needs of the district. So I need to see the information before I know what is moderate, but somewhere in mid-single digit is probably where it falls.
We have $2 billion worth of infrastructure out there, in water and sewer, not even lighted. You're talking about a 100-year life expectancy of all of that equipment. That works out to about $20 million a year, and we've not even gotten close to it. This is for water. This is what's been happening in the past, this goes back 5 more years, but we are not anywhere near where we should be. This comes off of the last budget proposal. And the idea, and forget about the green there, that's for water meters. They have nothing to do with the existing infrastructure. And so we've been averaging about $3 million a year of pipelines and a few things that we needed to fix. 10 years down the line, this is a projection of what they want to do. That is not going to work. That is not the way to run a business. We're talking about significant increases. We've been told it could be at least 10%, maybe more, maybe 12 to 15%. We'll talk about what it's later.
Like I said, rate increases should be tied to capital improvement specific projects so that you eliminate any of those increases going to something that wasn't intended. Now, I don't have as big a part as Jim, so mine goes back to the first year Jim was on the board, 78, 79. And he got elected in 78, so that actually that budget was approved by the previous individual on the board. At that time, our water rates were $3.50 a month. Our sewer rate was $6.60 a month. Today, our water rates are not $3.50 a month, they're $55 a month. Our sewer rates are not $6.60 a month, they're $42 a month. If you work that out, it's about a 7% increase per year for the last 40 years. So those are the actual numbers of what everything has went up. And I agree, gradual increases and maybe setting money aside, and my time's up. Thank you.
I agree with Eric. Until I see the information, I can't make a decision. So John, you put me on the spot. But single digit to me is between 2% and 4%. But it also has to do, any rate increase would have to do with how much work we can get done in a year, how many projects our engineers can actually accomplish. And for those of you who Jim is convinced the sky is falling, we have $25 million in the bank. We're not broke. Any emergency can be handled. And if we had to, we could change our rates through going through the process again. So, and the chart pretty much is 20 years of projects crammed into a 10-year period, and it looks terrible. Yes, everything's going to break, but everything doesn't break all at once. All those things aren't gonna break all at once. Some of them might break 10 years before they're supposed to, some might 20. That's why we're doing the analysis. So we do the rate analysis and we do the physical analysis to come up with the best guess we can. So I'll vote how you would vote if you knew what I know.
So it's a very good question. Of course, the graph that Mr. Jones has shown is very troubling. To have that much unfunded liability is very, very problematic, especially in a community where the per capita income is so low. So before we talk rate increases, I want to talk about revenue and how we generate additional revenue, because that's what we have to get to. Continual rate increases, whether it's 7% annual, 4%, 5%, until we get to a system in which we're maximizing revenue, we can't fully anticipate what the rate increases will have to be. And so I'm not talking about rate increases or revenue, of, releasing a little bit of land here, releasing a little bit of land there. We need to learn how to maximize our revenue. And fundamentally, that's why I'm running for the board, because that's what I have to do every day. They don't let me do anything unless I can show a demonstrable return on investment. And so we have to bring that level of thinking to SCPUD before we can get into, well, how much are we going to raise rates? Because again, people can't afford it.
Projects, where do you stand currently? How many homes are without water meters? How is that project going?
I think I'm up first. A little bit of a disadvantage. I haven't been around that board for 4 years. However, we are in the last 2 years, as I understand it, of completing the installation of all meters. So if you're in a neighborhood that doesn't have one, be on the alert. Now, having said that, most people who have meters are not unhappy with the result. And if they've signed on to the smart meter program or whatever it's called, they can actually check their water usage and monitor their usage very accurately. Since about 80% of our rate is a fixed rate and only 20% is based on consumption, if you are really careful with your consumption, you should not see a horrific rate spike like some people have claimed happens when they get their water meter.
The bill that required us to put water meters in mandated that it be revenue neutral. That is, we couldn't use metering of people's water to raise the rates. One of the things we did was to give everybody a year after they got their meters in. They could see then how much water they were using and then anticipate what they would have to pay in the future. A lot of those, there were a lot of people that came in and said, wow, I'm just using too much water, I can't believe it. We'd send out our people at the water conservation people, and they would find that they had leaks. There were a lot of leaks in the soil up here. It just goes into the ground, you never know it. So we've been able to reduce the use of water by getting those people to cut their leaks down, and that's worked out. So the idea originally was to try and get most people to be paying just about what they've been paying before. And, that bell curve, we try to maximize or minimize the difference. So it's worked, and hopefully within a couple of years we'll have everything finished.
Well, not being on the board for 25 years, my memory is as many colleagues as Eric maybe, but my recollection is, if your question was how many homes do not have meters, the answer is probably the remainder that need to be installed where we have our pipes in the ground. And I think that number is maybe around 4,000. But Tahoe Keys, for example, doesn't have meters. There's another 1,500. Lubins doesn't have meters. There's another 1,000. Lakeside Park doesn't have meters. That's another 800. All the people that have wells don't have meters. All the people that live out on Grass Lake Road don't have meters. So if you take all those together, we're probably close to about 8,000. Those 8,000 aren't subject to the legislation that was passed by Senator Klug in 1990 that mandated all water meters in the state of California by January 1st, 2025. So that's the answer I can give. There's a lot of people without meters, but the ones that are mandated, I think, are under 5,000 that we have to fulfill by January 1st, 2025. And Richard could correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you.
I really can't add anything to what everyone said. They've covered it well. Shelley's department has done a real good job. Our Water Smart program makes it so that people can find leaks that they never knew they had and reduce their water fees. I was against meters, and the reason I was against them is we don't dump into the California watershed the way all the people who are required to have meters have. We go into Nevada, where it goes out and eventually dumps into the desert. The other is, it's nice to save water, but we actually could go 30 years in a drought without running out of water. However, it does save electricity. The meters have saved a lot because people haven't turned as much. What have I done? I've gone to Washington and to the state many times to make sure that no new onerous laws get passed that you have to pay for. Every project that I see, I think, how many people sitting in their living room are having to write a check for this? And I try to keep that in mind.
So I think the question's been answered, so I'm just going to go off in a little bit slightly different direction. And so the thing I've heard most commonly about meters, besides that people don't like them, is secondly, that I have no control about how much money I save. I appreciate why the district had done that, and that 80% being fixed as a result of so many vacation rentals and second homes. But we need to look to create a situation, perhaps a different class system, in which people can become the masters of their own water usage and savings that they achieve through wise water usage. And what I mean by that is, oftentimes in projects, depending on what you're doing, various sections of that project are classed differently. So you pay differently based on the specific classification for that use, whether it's commercial, industrial, residential, mixed use, you can go on from there. And so something we might want to consider is looking to develop, multiple class systems depending on basing for full-time residents, second homes, and vacation home rentals. So that way everybody can become kind of the master of how they're using water and how they're saving money.
Okay, so I think the exact answer to this question is, I believe there's about 3,000 meters left to put in the ground. Shannon, pretty close? Somewhere in 2 years worth. The last year's probably going to be the problem ones that they're hard to get to, stuck in granite, et cetera, et cetera. Nick's idea is great. Unfortunately, as customers, everybody kind of has to be treated the same. And I don't know that there's any, was there another part to your question? Just how many are left and, okay.
So to keep the suspense from being too overwhelming, we're actually now going to get a number from Trevor Coolidge, our associate engineer, the manager of the meter project. They'll give you the latest estimate for how many are left. How many is not Rubens or Tahoe?
So it feels like the price is right, we've all lost your numbers. We have around 2,000 accounts. I say accounts because we have approximately 200 multifamily properties that might be condominiums where you have one service connection to 4 accounts. We've got about 200 to 300 of those. And those are tricky ones. We're looking at our rate structure and how to take an individual meter on that unit. How do we build those folks? There's another 200 to 300 that are in this tough cleanup gear option. That's like the grant you mentioned. They're under koi ponds, big waterfalls. Might be a connection that's on the wrong side of the property line where we can't put it in here for a given property. But in 2019, we're looking at about 1,300 meters on the Pioneer Trail corridor between Marshall Trail and where we have US 50, and that's our last big year. This year we installed just over 1,600 meters here at Sierra Track, Cold Creek, and then the majority of Marshall Trail Sierra House area. So that's the number, and happy to answer questions. Yeah, Scott here, we didn't hear from Lou or Nick, because I think they both got meters in the last 3 years.
The last 3 months.
Richard,
I'm Keith Klein. I have a question that has to do with, I've heard a lot of good ideas expressed, and I know that there's a lot of good ideas that are being put in place by the current board and past boards. So my question has to do with, if you should not be elected to the board and you have these good ideas, would you be willing to bring them to the board and help implement them? Not as a board member, but as a citizen.
Manage? Sure. I think I said in my opening statement that I feel as a responsible citizen, I'm obligated to use my skills and education and training to help my community, and I feel that the district has some things that I can provide some expertise. Like I said, I've been involved in water issues for 50 years, and in a lot of different ways. I worked at the Bureau of Reclamation, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the National Science Foundation. I was my own consulting firm here. So I've really seen I've got a lot of experience in a lot of different areas of the water world.
Well, I think my actions speak louder than words. From what I've said tonight, I hope they were well-informed answers. I haven't been on this board for 25 years, but I've tried to stay up to speed on the issues of not only this board, but the City Council, City of South Lake Tahoe City Council, the TRPA, Lahontan, DCSID, you name them. I've read about them just at least weekly, if not daily, for the last 25 years. So I would definitely would stay involved. I think my track record on that is pretty well established. Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that. Keith Klein was arguably the best mayor we ever had in our town, for a variety of reasons. It's one thing to say what you're going to do. You know, I could say if I was off, I would do it. But I started being interested in this board in 1988 when I was part of an affordable housing program to try to get with the community to try to find a way so that we could build affordable housing. I think I was 4 at the time, 1988. And I learned about the district and became interested. And I pestered Lou when he was on the board. I came to all the meetings, and I attended quite a few of them. And frankly, I don't know of any organization in town, city council included, county supervisors included, driving down to Placerville, that I haven't pestered with my wonderful ideas. So, yes, I will, and yes, I have.
The answer is absolutely. I've talked a lot with a lot of different people about renewable energy, and every step I've taken in that, especially to begin with, whether it was having the city council make that commitment, whether it was the school board making that commitment, whether it was founding the 100% renewable committee, being on the Lake Tahoe Unified Schools Sustainability Committee, being on their green project committee to develop greenhouses at the various different schools. All of that was done for no money, just for the volunteer exercise, because it's the right thing to do. That's why I'm running for this board, because it's the right thing to do, because I believe I can bring forward ideas that are good for the environment, that are good for the economy, and good for the people, most importantly. So what I would want is if SDPUD would really want to start taking a look at this options in a real manner and how we can make this transition, I would have started yesterday. So yes, the answer is I will do whatever I can, regardless if I'm on this board or not on this board, to make this happen.
The answer is yes. I grew up here, I've been here 56 years, and I would be remiss if I didn't have a good idea and try and at least tell it to someone that would listen. And that's what I've done for 9 years as a board member, is listen. You know, if they can come up with a great idea for something, I'm happy to listen to what it is, because if there's a way we can make our community a better place, then that's what we're going to do. So anyway, yes, I would.
I'm kind of a numbers geek, and so whether I'm on the board or not, I generally show up at the budget meeting that the board goes to, just because I like to know what's going on. I like to think that I help streamline the budget review from 2 days to a 1.5 day session, where we look at what's really important, not the minutiae detail. I keep in touch with issues outside of the basin by getting the federal lobbyist letter and by getting the California Association of Sanitation Agency newsletters. I could probably sneak into a meeting based upon my work as liaison to the Sanitation Association if I needed to, and thoroughly enjoy it. When I see something that I think is relevant, I bring it forward to the proper person at the district. So yes, I stay involved.
I was wondering, why is it the business of the utility district to basically lobby for other water districts like SMUT that are in the cloud seeding business? Jim, why were you lobbying at the Strawberry meeting? I know what Nick was, but why were you speaking for the SMUT program? I mean, specifically, you were speaking for them. And why is it the business of the district that what other water companies do? I mean, they're just, in their program, which you were there, you know, they compared their cloud seeding program to 9 other programs being done in the same area. But they didn't compare it to the national, international cloud seeding program that's going on. And they didn't bring up the UNR DRI on 1/29/18 in the Tahoe Tribune announced that they're spraying ammonium sulfate and potassium sulfite, which is urea, on the ground to prevent sublimation. We know what sublimation is. Sublimation is when it skips the process of going to a liquid. It goes right from snow on the ground to evaporation. Why is that the business of the district to be lobbying for other water agencies?
You want me to answer that? Or
I think
I'm going to start.
I'm next. Okay. I always like to be the big fish in the small pond instead of the small fish in the big pond, which we are in Aqua, where we have to align ourselves with the Metropolitan Water District and SMUD and all these bigger utilities. I don't really want to be there. They don't do much for us. They didn't lobby us when we lobbied against the water meters. Our lobbyists from Aqua or for CASA, California Association of Sanitation Agencies, they didn't lobby for us to get out of the water meter agreement. Even though I sort of agree with water meters, they didn't help us at all. You know why? Because we're a small fish. We have no say. So we have to go down and kowtow to them in order for them to support us on any minute issue. So I agree with you. I don't think we should be speaking for those agencies where we're just a small fish. Thank you.
Then I believe I was at that meeting down at Strawberry. It was quite a while back. And yeah, I might have been. I'm pretty sure I've been at others.
I don't think you were.
Okay, I missed that one. I was probably. But if you want to be specific about cloud seeding, I've always been worried about any substances. Like I'm not crazy about fluoride in the water. That's why I've not had that happen. I'm worried about the kind of silvery web that it seems to leave on our ground after the snow is gone. But when it comes to what do we think about other agencies, we don't usually get into their business unless it is a mutual concern of ours. And we don't like them getting in our business unless it's a mutual concern of theirs.
So I just want to make one quick point of clarification. I was not at any meeting in Strawberry discussing this matter, and I've never advocated ever in my life for cloud seeding in any format. So just want to make that very clear at the onset for a lot of reasons. I think Dwayne said we have water supply for 30 years, but there's a lot of other reasons as well. But more broadly, I just like to touch on the role of lobbying in an agency. And I think Lou said it best. is that when you are the small fish, you have to conglomerate with other small fishes. I'd like to compare it to, what you see on the Nature Channel, in that by yourself, you're not going to be terribly effective, but with a whole host of others, you can be effective. And so we need to come together. I mean, SDPUD worked diligently to try to get an exemption from the water meters because we have so much groundwater. They weren't successful, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So, we may not like lobbying full stop, but the rules that exist and the rules we must abide by require that SDPUD lobby and work with those other entities.
Don't get my pass on that one. Nick had a great answer, and I'm gonna go with that because honestly, I wasn't there, and I'm gonna say that's it for me.
I have no knowledge of the specific instance of which you speak. However, in my years on the board, I cannot remember a time when we advocated something for another agency that we did not believe in ourselves. And so I think every issue that comes before us, we have to take a good hard look at it and see if it makes sense for us. As far as our lobbying goes, I believe we do effectively get assistance from Aqua and CASA. And I think that if one were to go to any of those meetings and ask what do you think of SDPUD, you'd find that this agency is held in very high regard at both of those state agencies. So I think we better be careful about talking about cutting off our arm and thinking that we're not benefiting from being part of these organizations.
I was at that meeting, I went up there just because I was interested in the cloud seeding program. As I said earlier, I worked on some projects in Colorado many years ago. I was not advocating anything for the district. I was not supporting the SMUD project. It was going to be actually an increase of what they've been doing over there. I did, and you questioned, how much of the silver iodide was getting into our water, which I thought was, in all the studies I've seen, it's never been anything more than just background. I asked our chief chemist to look at that, and they came up with a non-detect. So in any of the water, our water as well as some groundwater out there. And as far as being involved with the government, other agencies like Aqua and CASA, I'm the only one on the board that's been going on a regular basis. I learn something new every time I go. We're involved in federal and state issues, and Eric was very involved with the CASA when he was on the board, and I've been very involved with Aqua over many years.
Hi. So whenever I go to the grocery store, I see a lot of people buying bottled water over and over and over again. And I was just curious about what you see as your role trying to discourage people from buying bottled water in our grocery store, as tourists, and yes.
Well, frankly, I always thought that we ought to be in the bottled water business using recycled ourselves. And the reason why, and we've tried to publicize it, maybe there's another way through Shelley or somebody, but our bottled water, our water is as good or better than any bottled water anywhere. And so when I was younger, when I was 4 in 1988, I could not have imagined that people would buy water because it was, you just didn't do that. You had your product bottle with you. So your question's a good one. And other than to advertise that our water is as good as any and they should just bring a bottle with them, we could do that as part of our radio ads, I think, and all our print. It's not a bad idea. That's all I can think of.
So I'd like to start with why is bottled water bad? And fundamentally, bottled water is bad because it's fundamentally destroying marine ecosystems across the planet. Surely there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. If you've ever been to remote beaches, you've seen the effect firsthand. So it is important to have a role. There are limitations, of course, but what we start doing is, what can we do? Is there grant money available, considered, for installing those water dispensers where it tells you how many bottles have been saved? Is there additional advertising that can be done to get people out of it? Could we work in combination with grocery stores? I'm talking Raley, Sears, Safeway, grocery outlet, to get the word out there to say, hey, STPUD has the cleanest water in the basin, some of the cleanest water in the world, and we want people to use, to drink Tahoe tap opposed to buying bottled water and do something positive for the environment. Make it positive. Make it a reason people want to do it, opposed to just another rule that's slapped in their face. Make it positive.
So that's an interesting question, and I think we addressed it with a program called Drink Tahoe Tap. Now, maybe that hasn't been as prominent as it was a while back, and it maybe could come back. But it's interesting that the city banned plastic bags, yet they didn't make any move toward bottles of water. And I agree with Nick, plastic is a terrible threat to ecosystem. And so I agree. I mean, why couldn't we just simply push the city to pass a ban that bans bottled water? It's a reaction. People buy it because they come up here, and where they live, the water tastes horrible, mostly. The town of Canmore up in Alberta banned water bottles, and you can't buy them. So, I mean, I don't know why we couldn't do the same thing. Grocery stores make a lot of money out of them.
And that's where you would have to have a meeting of the minds with the purveyors of water bottles in order to determine that we want them to have a profit disincentive by not offering it. I used to walk down the aisle and see people picking up their jugs of water and say, are you from town or not? And if they said they were visiting, I'd tell them, you've got better tap water here than you're going to find almost anywhere. You don't need that water, unless you're going out on a trail or whatever. But people are so accustomed to it, it's an automatic reaction. If they're visitors, if they're locals, we haven't done a very good job of educating them, apparently. The district digest goes out and it may get read by 10% of the people who open their bills. The main thing they do is look at the cost and when the charge is going to go through or when they have to have the check-in by. So we need a little bit better PR program probably to get over that.
I've had the same experience as Eric mentioned at Safeway when they're filling up those large bottles of water and people don't understand. Like you said, they're used to it. I mean, we're getting ripped off. I mean, you think the price of gasoline is too high. We've been ripped off by the oil companies. Look at how much you're paying per gallon for some of this bottled water here. Our district and every other district in water district company in the United States has to meet higher standards for domestic water than the bottled water companies do. I had Jerry a few years ago evaluate a bottled water that was called Tahoe water. It was actually bottled out of some well in Carson City, and it exceeded the federal limits for fluoride by a significant amount, and it had detritus in it, which is small blood parts.
I have a different answer. I think the grocery stores and towns would be amenable to giving us some shelf space, and we gave away reusable water containers, STPUD reusable water containers, to give people incentive to get their water out of the tap. That way, we're giving them something to use, as opposed to just trying to indoctrinate them and drink Tahoe tap, which I think is a great idea if people did it. Well, let's incentivize them to doing it by giving them something for free. People like stuff for free. And I think that might solve a little bit of the problem. You're still going to have people buying water. Like I say, the water where they came from is not as good as ours, so they don't think it is. So, but if we incentivize them by giving away reusable water containers, I think that might work. Thank you.
One more question?
I have a question. I know that there's a state law that's coming up that's going to start restricting water use per person to about 55 gallons per day. And I want to know what the role of the district is in that, and are you going to become the water cops?
No, I think it's an excellent question, and thankfully that effort was thwarted in Sacramento fairly recently, but these things become zombies and they have a way of coming back. And so I'm opposed to it for a lot of different reasons. One, I don't think SDPUD should be in the business of being water cops. Two, I'm very concerned about what it does to our commercial enterprises. I'm thinking about our ski resorts that make snow. And so this to some degree leads back into a previous question we had as it relates to lobbying. And so what SDPUD needs to do and is doing, in full disclosure, is they're building a coalition of water authorities to work with the state legislature, work with the decision makers to adjust that. If in the event it does go through, we have to start looking at specific exemptions that are applicable to Tahoe and Tahoe only. And again, it really goes back to that commercial piece. How that factors into our snowmaking abilities will not only have an impact on Heavenly, will have an impact on restaurants, places that rent skis, boots, you can go down the road. So no, we should not become the water cops and we should work to oppose it.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, as Evo could tell you, as long as records have been kept, the water in Tahoe, the water tables in Tahoe have remained fairly consistent throughout our recorded history, which it technically means we really have never had a drought. So we are being lumped in with the rest of the state, which has consistent and troublesome water shortages based on development or, you know, droughts. And so we often get lumped into that pile of people that have to deal with loss we don't like. Now, 55 gallons a day, I think that would, first of all, we're not the water cops, and second of all, we're going to have to deal that card when we get it. I don't think we can discount the fact that it could happen someday. And then what to do about it would be what to do about it then.
It has passed. That did pass in the last legislature, 50 gallons per capita per day for indoor water use.
It's going to be an interesting challenge.
In 1977, when Nancy and I had our first home, there was a water shortage in the East Bay, severe. We were limited to 83 gallons a day for the family of four. We did it. Our lawn went brown, but we did it. So 55 gallons a day per person can be done. But the problem we have is the legislature of the state of California that has ideas that don't consider the unique characteristics of every community. And so we have to live with it just like we have to live with the water meters. So we make the best of it that we can. Instead of being water cops, we're water educators. And instead of finding people for problems, we go around and help them to solve the problems by fixing the leaks and letting them take out their lawn and do things like that. So it can be done. It can be done in a fair and pleasant way.
The 55 gallons per person is not quite the whole story, though. That's for indoor use, domestic use. They were going to provide something for outdoor irrigation and they talked about flying over and taking pictures, and you got so much lawn, you get so many gallons. Well, lots of luck up here with all the pine trees that can't see the ground. It's, you know, that one size fits all. And we tried to get out of the water meter mandate and use the argument that we're not part of the California water system. And it was, we almost got it, but they came back, they said, we're passing the bill and said, well, you know, you have a special case, and, you know, every other community is special, and they're going to ask for exemptions in some way. And so it's hard to fight it. We've been part of the Aqua attempt to fight this bill, and you know, we've been able to be effective, and my time is up.
I'm not sure how effective Aqua was. We have a unique situation here where we could prove all our water goes to Nevada. All the water in the Tahoe Truckee watershed, all the water in the Carson watershed goes to Nevada. It doesn't go here. How effective was our Aqua water, our lobbyist for Aqua? It doesn't seem like he was very successful in stopping that. And that's who needed to represent us. Like I say, we're a small fish in that big pond when we're part of Aqua. I'm not sure if we get adequate lobbyist representation. I'm glad that legislation was shot down, because if it would have made it to the governor, who knows, he might have signed it. I don't think it even made it out of committee though, but I did hear that 55-gallon number. That's pretty incredible when we charge for 93 gallons per sewer unit per day for indoor use. So the 55-gallon number was way out of line, and I'm glad it was shot down. Thank you.
It wasn't shut down.
Yeah, who knows?
No, it's not. It has. That was a good question, Mrs. Wallace. You're obviously married to a very intelligent man. The question is one that we've knocked around our dinner table. It did pass 55 gallons per day. It's kind of like Big Brother is here. And one of the problems we have individually, and there's two problems really. One is we have tourists from all over the world. They don't have a clue what's going on. And they get in and take a shower, they take a 20-minute shower, and you're done for the day with your allocation. Washing clothes, let's say if you've got indigent person in your home, that's a problem. The other is they really are going to try to do drums over people's properties that make us establish a water budget, outside water budget for their homes, and they want us to enforce it. If we don't, we'll be fined. We have gotten out of some legislation by using the over 6,000 foot rule, where in districts over 6,000 feet in Northern California, those are exempted. We've gotten some of those. But that doesn't get away from what is an out of control legislature that is just beating the heck out of water districts and using us as a water cop tool. And as long as I'm here, I'll fight it, because I just think it's crazy. I'm mad.
We have one last question before we go to the closing statement.
And this will be a quick question, because it might be a question for you. I recall a proposal that water districts like ours is going to be charged extra money to cover communities where the water is not as good. So whatever happened to that?
That's the one
That failed.
Oh, okay.
And that was a lot of effort from Aqua and lobbying. The district and other entities did a lot of lobbying to fight that and actually caused it to fail.
It was literally the water tax, the dollar per customer per month of the entire state of California.
See, these guys didn't know that.
You guys know that? Why don't we get to closing statements, unless there's one more burning question. So why don't we go this way for closing statements? Derek, you're up 2.5 minutes?
Do that. I think I've stated my qualifications and my desire. I would just like to say that there have been some comments that I've read about fiscal mismanagement. And I'd like to take that to task, because I don't believe that is the case here. I know numbers, I study them, I deal with them, and I've dealt with them in the district for 14 years. And this district has always done a great job of analyzing where costs can be cut and trying to find revenue sources that make sense. And I'd like to get back a little bit to that unwillingness to cooperate thing. You know, there's a number of things that wouldn't have happened in this city without STPUD. The low-cost housing project, the Aspens, would not have happened unless Stupid had agreed to get their connection fee over 55 years instead of getting it up front. The city needed that to happen in order for the federal tax credit to happen to the developer. So that's one. The flood control product, Bijou Meadows. Everybody went ahead and did it. If you go look at the sign out there, you see all the agencies that participated. The city couldn't run it. Guess who takes care of it if something needs to happen? STPUD. The TJ Maxx in Bethmo. The water supply could not be achieved by Lukens. Stupid stepped in and extended a pipe and took care of supplying that. So the city gets the sales tax revenue out of that. Another thing that never any credit for. And then if you look at the streets out in the state streets, you'll see half of them paved on one side, all of them are paved on one side and not on the other. Well, the city was supposed to come along and do that at the same time. Did they ever? No, and that continues. We pick up paving stuff for the city everywhere we go. So my closing comment is, I will work to make sure that we do everything we can to bring other agencies into the fold and get positive things to happen, whether it's low-cost housing, whether it's infrastructure improvements, whatever we need to do. This board and this organization has the leadership capability to make that happen, and I would like to be a part of it.
I would like to say that I think the next 4 years are going to be very important in the community and for the district. I don't think that infrastructure is crumbling. I think it's getting older. And I've already said that asset optimization is helping us find those weak spots and also highlighting our strong, places where we don't have to do anything. I ran again because those are going to be important years, and we're in the process of recruiting and hiring a new GM. Richard has done a great job. He's going to go off to Florida, and we're still, or maybe not. But that's going to be an important change or evolutionary process for the district. We got a lot of really strong people at the district that are now handing down their knowledge of 30 plus years to new people. That's all going to be really important. A couple of years ago, we actually decided to change the way we elect our directors from seat specific to popular vote. I think that's important, and if you look at the quality of the candidates, you'll see that worked. So we've made those decisions. Going forward, I will make those decisions as carefully as I have in the past, and I hope I get a chance to do it for 4 more years. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for your time this evening. It was a wonderful array of questions from everyone that spoke out. But the reason I'm running and I'm asking for your vote on November 6th is opportunity. We have the opportunity to do some truly amazing things, but we have to grab that opportunity. From what I've heard, we've been doing this for 5, 10, 20 years. It's been fantastic. But I have bad news for some of you. Things will have to be done differently in the future, in tomorrow. Maybe not because we want it that way, but because variables and the real world will dictate that it is done differently. And that's why I'm running for the board. When I initially started talking about climate change as a land use planner and a developer, people said, you're going to lose all your clients. You just had little kids, rethink it. I said, no, I understand the economic realities, I understand the political and regulatory realities, and fundamentally, I knew that was the direction we had to move. So I moved with it. And I can tell you, $1 billion worth of investment later, if you're someone in the Tahoe Basin looking to spend money, you come to work with Gary Midkiff and myself, because I've developed that trust. And the reason I've been able to develop that trust is because I have been able to deliver on those 3 things with every single project. And so now people aren't questioning the ability, well, can you be a developer and fight climate change? Absolutely not. Now the people I work with are the people working to fight climate change, to stop the environmental challenges that face us by simultaneously creating a better community, a better economy, and creating good paying jobs. That's why I'm running, because I have that experience. I was able to work to develop the fire system without any assistance from the government, from ratepayers, from the utility district, because it needed to be done. Because we had to think about it in a new way, and that's why we were able to make it work. And so the reason I'm running is because we have challenges facing us, and I want to be that voice for the future. I want to be the voice for the people that I knock on over 2,000 of the doors and tell them what I intended to do and why I intended to do it. And so for those reasons, I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. Thank you so much.
It's 2 minutes, right? Oh, I can do that. when you're rooting for a sports team, or they're your favorite team, or you're rooting for a boxer in boxing, there's two opponents. One that says, I can knock this guy out, I can take the champ out, I'll knock him out, I know better, I've got the technique. And then there's the champ who may be 30-0. So which way do you go? It's the same in politics. Either you never had it so good, or it's time for a change. In our case, we've done a good job, and I'm proud of the job we've done. We've gotten, one thing we didn't talk about is through Lynn Nolan, how many millions of dollars we've gotten in federal grants and state grants that have kept our rates lower than they would have been. I'm talking about our ability to take on 32 oil companies, full-fledged battle in court, and won against those 32 oil companies to clean up MTBE. I'm talking about when the city decided they were going to take over our district in Texas, and how we whooped them when they tried to. I'm talking about the hundreds of fire hydrants that we've put in, the millions of dollars of pipes that we put in order to try to protect this community from ever having another Angora fire. Our job's not done yet on that. Talking about the fact that for 20 years, we've had the top financial award in the nation. It's a national award for a comprehensive annual financial report, 20 years in a row. Talking about the fact that for the past 2 years, we've been awarded the top award for transparency, the buzzword nowadays, for openness in government. I'm talking about twice our utility district has been the #1 utility district in the United States by the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm talking about recently a water magazine, the Association of California Water Agencies, declaring that we were one of a handful, only a handful of utility districts in the entire world that are 100% recycled. We use our sludge that we centrifuge instead of burning it to save the environment. We use that for manure. We send that water over the hill. We use it we have a recreation lake, and we grow alfalfa, and we lease the land for cattle. We've done a good job, and I hope to keep you here. Thank you.
Why should you select me to serve on this board? Well, I'm the best candidate. I bring a well-rounded background on the public and private sector. I've been on this board before for 4 years. I'm willing to take on what is in store in the future for this board. My interest is in balancing and protecting the water quality, the environment, the development in our community, and the interest of our local ratepayers. And I have a plan in terms of climate change and using all that electricity that nobody's mentioned. The export line, for example, we could do all by gravity. We just need to build a tunnel from El Tahoe Boulevard and Pioneer Trail right down to Hardy Place Reservoir, and we use no electricity at all. We don't have to worry about pumping. We don't have to worry about spills. It'll all be done on gravity. I can come up with ideas. I'm well informed on the issues, and I hope that you vote for me on November 6th. Thank you very much for coming, and especially the ones of you that missed this great baseball game, I'm sure. Thanks.
You're still playing baseball? I thought it was over this season. As I said earlier, I feel an obligation to continue. I enjoy it. I'm eager to do it. I've got the time. I've had a lot of experience in other areas working before I opened up my consulting firm here. I have a Master BS in Civil Engineering from Cal Poly and an MS from Stanford in Environmental Engineering and Sanitary Engineering. So I have the experience, the education, and a lot of training. We have done a lot of great things here. A lot of it was done many years ago. Being the top treatment plant in the country was decades ago. And our plant's running pretty good right now, but we've got stuff underground that's in worse condition than the city streets. We've got the water lines that need to be replaced, And when you're talking about $250 a linear foot to replace those pipelines, or maybe less if we can do slip lining, $150 a linear foot. You add that up with 350 miles of water and about 250 miles of, 350 miles of sewer and 250 miles of water lines that are aging rapidly. We need to start a long-term program, and I've heard more about asset management from the existing board members and incumbents up here than in the last few weeks or months than I've heard for years. And very proud of the fact that we've been able to keep the rates down, but there's a cost, and it's coming, and we've got to start planning for it. None of this stuff that I showed you on this chart, where we're going to have a significant increase in 10 years, it's going to hurt. And all I can say is that we ought to be building for the future. We shouldn't be stealing from it. Thank you.